Hi everyone, welcome to Cinephile Sexy Time. I'm Will.
I'm Dale, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing this podcast.
Everyone comes up to us and says, Will, Dale, what should we watch this week for movies? And we got so tired of saying the same thing again and again and again, we decided, let's just make a podcast. So here we are.
The best way for you to reach us is going to be through our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/cinephilesexytime. You can view all of our videos on youtube.com/cinephilesexytime, or hit us up on Twitter. That's at CPSexytime.
As in cheese pizza sexy time. Also, you can email us at cinephilesexytime@gmail.com. For those of you who can't spell, that is CINEPHILESEXYTIME@gmail.com. But quite frankly, if you should know that already because you're listening to our podcast right now, so somehow you found us.
Podcasts will be dropping every Sunday night. Our plan is to, in the future, be able to have them downloadable. Unfortunately, at the moment, that's not possible. Hopefully, sometime in the next week or so, that will be.
In addition, this podcast heavily relies on listener feedback. So if you're out there, you're listening to us, and you want to say something to us, we want to hear from you. So please reach us on Facebook, send us an email, talk to us on Twitter. Heck, we even want you on this show. And in our plan in the future is to actually have guests, have you on the show. For every show that we have, we want someone sitting in and adding a few of their comments. So please, come on our show. Send us an email. Reserve your spot now because they are going to fill up quickly.
If for some reason you can't make it in, definitely drop us a line, leave us a voicemail. Our phone number, 717-SEXY-BITCH. Easy to remember, easy to dial. Give us a call.
So overall, we want you here. We want to hear from you. And look out for us every Sunday night for a new podcast, either on iTunes or on YouTube.
A brief explanation of the format of each show. It's going to be broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different segments. The first segment of which is going to be the new releases of this coming week. We're going to talk to you about which movies you should see, which movies you shouldn't see, and even which ones tend to be hitting pretty big in the box office.
This will also include in theater and on DVD this week. So this is the theater releases that came out this previous weekend, and then the upcoming DVD/Blu-ray releases this upcoming Tuesday. The next segment will be movie news. This includes different headlines we saw this week, celebrity gossip, new trailers that might have come out and debuted online, so stuff that you need to check out.
Next topic is going to be the featurette. This is pretty much going to be the meat and potatoes of each and every podcast. This is the section where we like to talk about pretty much anything we want to talk about. Whether it be an advanced screening, we're going to give you our top 10 lists, our bottom 10 lists.
Yeah, just something different each week. This is a little bit of variety added in, a little bit of fun. This is stuff that you won't find anywhere else. This is our personal opinion, and this is where we want to especially hear from you. If you disagree with anything we say, let us know.
After that, we'd like to talk to you about our oddball pick of the week. Now, these are going to be films that maybe you have heard of, perhaps you haven't. Either way, we're going to be telling you what you should watch. Some of them are going to be readily accessible on Netflix. So if you happen to be a subscriber, we're going to tell you what you should and shouldn't watch on Netflix as well.
This is our opportunity to tell you about a movie that might have fell beneath your radar, something you've never heard about, that you should definitely check out.
Perhaps you did hear about it, just plain didn't get around to it. Either way, we're going to tell you to watch it.
This is also an opportunity to talk about some foreign films, too. Because a lot of people come to us and say, well, what's out there in, France or Korea that's worth checking out? And we say, here it is.
And our final segment is just going to be where we like to read the emails that we've gotten throughout the week. We're going to play our voicemails for you to listen to, and even for you to respond to things that we might have said in the past podcasts.
This is our opportunity to cut you a new one. So when you send us something that we don't like, we're just going to tear into you.
Now that we've gone through all of this, we'd like to start our first podcast of Cinephile Sexy Time.
All right, so first we'll be talking about new releases this week. In theater, we have The Woman in Black, Chronicle, Big Miracle, Innkeepers, and Kill List.
Those last two, Innkeepers and Kill List, those are limited release. Those didn't hit every theater throughout the country. They only hit very specific ones, particularly your artsy ones. Unfortunately, I don't have one near me. If you do, I kind of hate you.
Well, the closest one we have would be, the Ritz in Philadelphia, which we love. And we love the Ritz because if you go there and you make a sound, they will crucify you. They're literally in the theater. So we're big fans of the Ritz. Definitely check out some of these films when you can. So a little bit about these films. It's actually a surprising weekend. I think that the biggest surprise here, and Dale, please chime in, is Chronicle. When I first saw the trailer for Chronicle, to be honest, I really wasn't that impressed. It looked very indicative of films like Jumper and those, cheesy PG-13 movies that are really
utter crap.
Yeah, aimed for this younger generation, and it's just terrible, terrible filmmaking, and just, not even B-movie material. We're talking about D at best, movie making right here.
And to be honest, with it sitting at an 85%, I'm shocked. I'm very shocked.
We all were.
Curious. I almost want to go see it just to see this shocker.
The critics are saying great things about it. They're saying it's a talented cast. They say, even though it is more found footage filmmaking, that it's definitely worth checking out. It actually transcends the medium, per se, of found footage filmmaking. And this is a new genre that's kind of popped up over the past few years. It's something that's definitely got more popularity with the ease of camera and film these days.
This found footage genre, this is something that Will and I were talking about earlier today. It actually seems to be something that's in its infancy. I'm not sure that he fully agrees with me, but I'm looking forward to, in the next 6 to 7 years, when it kind of meanders off and it's not so popular. Because I think if we have a master behind the camera, someone who really knows what they're doing, and has the ability to make it not look like it was shot by Paul Greengrass, I think that's when we're really going to get into some pretty incredible stuff.
See, for me, found film footage, it's hit or miss. You have these cases where it's really good, like Record or Record 2. That actually was a really decent horror film that worked out really well. And, of course, everyone goes back to Blair Witch, which, was a staple of its time. And then now everyone kind of forgot about it after Blair Witch, and then it's, resurrecting again, and now it's spiking up. We have a film called VHS that's really popular in Sundance right now that people are going crazy over, and everyone, it's becoming the #1 pick at Sundance this year. So it will be interesting to see what happens.
All right, now the next film that we have in this theater release, I want to talk about Big Miracle.
Now I'm going to interject here because I thought this movie looked like a big old whale turd of a film because it just seemed way too cheesy. The CGI looked awful. It just oozed cheese. I love John Krasinski in The Office, although he's getting a little annoying, to be honest with you, on The Office, his character. Anyways, but then you have Drew Barrymore and then the guy from Becker. It's just too much. Drew Barrymore was halfway decent back in her glory days, but anymore, she just doesn't seem to be the right pick. I never liked her to start with, so I'm not a fan of hers. But needless to say, so you have this Big Miracle film that everyone, I think a lot of people didn't think was going to be that great, and what do you know? The critics loved it. It's sitting at a 71% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, and people are saying it's a good family drama film. So I don't think it's going to be something that I'll be, rushing to the theater to see, but, maybe if I'm looking for a family-friendly film, it might not be a bad option.
It would definitely be what I would call a red box pick. Go ahead, pay the $1 for it, but I wouldn't drop the $11 for your theater release.
Now, before we touch on The Woman in Black, I just said touch on The Woman in Black, excuse me. We're going to talk about Innkeepers and Kill List. These are both, like we said before, limited releases. Both horror films that are getting fresh tomato readings right now. Innkeepers especially you want to keep your eye on because T. West directed them. He was the director of House of the Devil, which was actually really good. It's a little stereotypical, a little cliche, but it knew what it was and it did it really well. And early reports are saying Innkeepers did the same thing.
Which, if you haven't seen House of the Devil, I do believe that's streaming on Netflix at the moment. Definitely check it out. It's worth your time. It's a great film to just sit down with your girlfriend or boyfriend, depending on who's listening, and just chill out for the night.
And T. Wesley's also worked on VHS once again, so found footage stuff is popping back up. Also, Kill List, BloodyDisgusting.com gave it its #1 pick of the year. So we're going to kind of keep our eye on that, see when that comes out on VHS. And I just made my second mistake of this podcast by saying that films were still available on VHS. Excuse me, I meant Blu-ray and DVD. All right, so then the big film of this weekend is going to be The Woman in Black, which is surprisingly the lowest rated film that came out this weekend, besides a few other smaller ones that you don't care about.
Now, having seen it myself, I can't say that it's really that surprising that it's rated as low as it is, sitting at a 62% on Rotten Tomatoes. Daniel Radcliffe delivered a bang-up performance. He's actually pretty decent at delivering a suspenseful film, something I was a little surprised at myself. But it seemed as though the rest of the cast couldn't quite keep up with him. You would think that it would be full of people that know how to work alongside of Daniel Radcliffe.
Easy mistake to make, right? Or you meant guy riding naked on a unicorn, right?
One or the other.
You did that Broadway? No, nobody knows what I'm talking about. Okay.
Of course not, no. Now, let's also talk about why this movie might be rated where it is. First of all, this is an e-ticket ride. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about with an e-ticket ride, look it up, search it on Google, you'll understand later. The movie is quite possibly one of the best haunted house rides that I've ever been on. Now, to say that it's the best haunted house ride isn't really saying much for the actual film itself. As anybody that's been in a haunted house ride, you know what's coming up.
It's still a haunted house ride. I mean, it doesn't matter how you dress it up or how scary it is. At the end of the day, it's still a haunted house ride.
In fact, it even hit a lot of the cliches that I kind of felt like some of the props were on the same rail system and on the same trigger points as most of your haunted house rides.
So overall, we're coming to the conclusion that The Woman in Black has a pretty standard storyline with some really good scares in there and just a good time overall.
It's going to be very difficult for me to give you an idea of whether or not you should see it in theater. If you're going to see it, definitely see it in theater. But I can't recommend to drop the $11. So if you happen to have one of those cheap theaters, hopefully it'll run for you about 6 months later. Check it out then. Don't spend $11.
We're sitting at about a what? Maybe a C on this one? C+?
I'm at a solid C.
Okay, absolutely. But overall, this weekend, if you're going to the movies, check out Chronicle. I think that's going to be my pick of this week for in theater. What about you?
I think Chronicle is where I'm going to sit with my recommendation, too. 85%, you can't go wrong. Check it out.
And on whole new cast, too. This is something we forgot to mention before. These are complete newbies to the scene, and everyone's saying they've got a lot of potential for growth. So on to Blu-ray releases this week, we have A Very Heralding Kumar Christmas, Anonymous, The Rebound, Fireflies, and The Garden. To be honest with you, not looking too good for DVD releases this week.
Save your money.
Heralding Kumar Christmas, it looked okay. The first one was fun. Second one sucked, actually. It was really, really bad. The critics for this third one are saying, it's more of the same. It's kind of fun. If you want to check it out, I guess if it's on Netflix and got nothing better to do, you could do worse.
Sadly, it's actually the highest rated of all the DVDs being released this week. Again, save your money. Don't buy a single thing.
No, absolutely not. Now, for the box office this weekend, we are having slow estimates coming right now. The Chronicle is looking to take in number 1 at $22 million. The Woman in Black is at $21 million. The Gray is number 3, and Big Miracle is number 4 with $8 million.
If you haven't seen The Gray, go check it out. It's worth your money. It's definitely a theater film.
Absolutely. We saw it both last weekend, and it was just a phenomenal good time. Really a huge surprise, which is turning out to be the winner in general. Just a surprise.
And as far as your DVDs go, we're also going to drop back to next week. Go out and pick up Drive. If you haven't bought it, if you haven't seen it, it doesn't matter. Go buy it right now.
So really, this podcast is a week late. You need to go see The Gray. You need to go see Drive. End of story. All right, now on to our movie news and headlines. Dale, I do believe you have the first headline of this week, which is...
The first one that I have is going to be that there's a new writer slotted for a Short Circuit reboot. Everybody absolutely loves Johnny Five.
Who grew up with Johnny Five. I don't think there are a few people out there who really don't like it because they weren't a kid when it came out. And quite frankly, I watched it again as an adult, and... yeah, it sucked a little.
It probably didn't age that well. But
like
you know what?
Things.
For it being 20 years old, you can't blame it too bad. It did come out in the middle of the 80s.
There was a lot worse in the 80s, we'll say that much. So anyway, tell us a little bit more about it.
All right, well, what we're looking at is that we do have the director, Tim Hill. He's known for movie Hop. Unfortunately, though, they did just lose their main writer. This was Dan Milano. He's the main writer for Robot Chicken. One of the writers for Robot Chicken. Now,
we're big fans of Robot Chicken. Love Robot Chicken.
Absolutely hilarious. Their take on Star Wars is a riot.
Absolutely.
Now, who they did bring in was Matt Lieberman. This is the new writer. Now, this guy is brand new. He's coming directly out of the Disney Writers Program. He's never really done much in the past. In fact, I can't find anything on him at all. So it looks like this is going to be his first thing. Potential. Short Circuit. It's going to be a hard one to screw up, so let's see how he does.
Actually, I think it could be an easy one to screw up. In many ways. It's Short Circuit.
Stick to the original.
Send us your thoughts. Send us an email. Let us know what you think about the new Short Circuit movie and how it could go wrong. Or right.
Give us a call. 717-SEXY-BITCH.
All right. Now, the next movie headline. The one that's got everybody talking this week is the new Candyland movie. Now, we know Hasbro has been on this, long kick of releasing movies based on board games. We have Battleship coming out, which looks absolutely atrocious with the horror of Hollywood, Liam Neeson. As much as I love him, God, it just makes me so angry to see him in this film. So you have this film, Battleship, coming out, and then on the skirts of this film, you have now Candyland. And Hollywood is all abuzz about this. Facebook is just going crazy over it because Adam Sandler himself will be in Candyland.
I'd like to first mention Adam Sandler, the worst actor that has ever graced the screen. I absolutely hate Adam Sandler. He has never been funny in his entire career. I can't stand him. I hate all of his movies. The Wedding Singer, you know what? You guys can shove it. I hate The Wedding Singer. I said it.
See, now here's the thing. I like The Wedding Singer. I enjoyed The Wedding Singer. Billy Madison had a few laughs. And films like Punch Drunk Love, I think, really drew out Adam Sandler as an actor. And I think, Funny People, too, was a little... It had potential.
I love Funny People. I hated Adam Sandler in it. Give me somebody different.
But recent new Adam Sandler is awful. I will agree with you on that. So people are just up in arms over this, especially following Jack and Jill. I mean, Jack and Jill, just atrocious. It's a big old Ponzi scheme. It had a budget of $80 million, yet it looked like a Saturday Night Live sketch, which leads some people to believe that it was just kind of a method for Adam Sandler to pay his buddies off and be in films and get millions of dollars for nothing.
And I'm sure we're going to see the same thing out of Candyland. We're probably going to be looking at some old Christmas decorations for most of the props.
Yeah, so who is attached to this movie right now? Right now we have Kevin Lima as the director. He did Enchanted, Tarzan, a Goofy movie, and 102 Dalmatians. Out of that list, not so good. I mean, the Enchanted... It was okay. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever sat through. It was kind of a clever idea. Can't really go wrong directing a film like that if you just know how to direct. And
a Goofy movie, well, it's a Goofy movie.
I hate it.
Everybody's seen it. Nobody liked it.
It's embarrassing, quite frankly.
But it's still got its cheap laughs.
Back to Candyland, however, the writer attached to this film is Robert Smigel, who brought us things like TV Funhouse and Triumph, the dog on Conan O'Brien, which is pretty funny, granted, but he also brought us things like Don't Mess with the Zohan and Jack and Jill. So really, I'm not having high hopes for this film. It's just going to be another way for Hasbro to bring in more money, another way for Adam Sandler to just be in our face and be, I love candy, and just
nom 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 gum dropped.
What was that? Was that Cookie Monster? I could have swore Cookie Monster made it into the film.
I don't know the difference anymore.
It's Adam Sandler. He's just a piece of crap, and it's time for Hollywood to drop his ass and move on. Anyways, next headline.
Next headline we're talking about the new film Riddick 3. It's actually finally been titled. In fact, they're just calling it Riddick. Now, when we say Riddick 3, there's already 3 films in the series, but the first being such a short film, I don't think they actually consider it part of the series. It's an odd setup. Now, this is Vin Diesel in the new one. Again,
I hate Vin Diesel, just to insert my own 2 cents here. Absolutely the worst actor, even worse than Adam Sandler, per se. I absolutely hate Vin Diesel.
At least Vin Diesel doesn't try to be funny when he's not.
No, he does. The Pacifier. Remember that? Yeah,
yes.
he does try to be funny.
He did try to be funny in The Pacifier.
Awful.
And that's a horrible fail. Now, Vin Diesel is the one that's going to be starring in the new Riddick film. Again, just titled Riddick. They also released a synopsis of the film. Go online, check it out. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It's time-consuming and pretty boring. If you happen to like Riddick, I'm sorry. They're not that great. Even for me, I'm a huge sci-fi fan.
I'm not a fan of Riddick at all. So, we're going to move on. All right, so the big talk, actually, though, of this week will be Harrison Ford is in talks for the new Blade Runner film. Now, 2012 is going to be a big year for Ridley Scott. He has Prometheus coming out, which, to be honest with you, might be my #1 most anticipated film of 2012.
I'm going to second that.
I absolutely love the Alien trilogy. I think Alien was probably his best work to date. And to see this come out is just getting me all sorts of giddy. Now, people thought Prometheus was going to be an Alien prequel, but it turns out that's not the case. It's going to be its own film in and of itself. Obviously, it's going to have ties to that, but it looks incredible. Check out the trailer if you haven't seen it. I mean, I don't know why you're even listening to us if you haven't seen the trailer. You need to stop this podcast right now. Check it out.
All right, let's get back to Blade Runner.
Back to Blade Runner. So, it turns out this Blade Runner isn't going to be a reboot. It's actually going to be a sequel as of right now. For everything we know right now, it's going to be an actual sequel. They thought that Harrison Ford was going to have no part in the film. Now it looks like he's in talks to play a role. So we're not sure what this means, what's going to happen, but it's big news. We're going to have a sequel to Blade Runner. This sounds awesome. I mean, Ridley Scott, keep going. You can have my money right now. I will give you my money right now.
I'm a huge fan of Blade Runner. I absolutely love it. Harrison Ford, for my money, you can't go wrong with Harrison Ford. He might have a few flops out there, but he's still fun to watch even in his crappy films.
I think his best role was in Bruno, though, to be honest with you.
I did love him in Bruno.
He only had one line, but it might have been the best line from that film, and it was definitely the biggest laugh, but then again, it was Bruno. Anyway, so we're going to move on. We're going to go to our big featurette of this week, which is going to be the top 10 most overrated films of all time. Now, we decided to come up with this topic because, the Academy Award nominations just came out, and the awards are going to be next week, and you have all these films that really made it onto the Academy's Best Picture of the year, and they're awful. You have Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, The Help, films that are really not that good, and some big snubs like Drive. And we thought, let's come up with a list of our top 10 most overrated films. So we're going to start with number 10, and please send us your list. If you have your own top 10, we want to know what they are, and we might even just tell them. We'll take our best list, and we'll put it on next week's show, so that we can, and we won't spend much time on it, but, we'll at least tell you who you are and give you some credit.
If we happen to make you mad during this list, definitely give us a call. Again, 717-SEXY-BITCH.
All right, so number 10, most overrated film of all time. Now, granted, these aren't really bad films. They're just overrated. There's so much publicity and so much everybody loves them, popularity around them, that we just can't take it anymore. And we had to make this list up because we're sick and tired of hearing how great this film is, or maybe not so great.
Quite possibly it's movies that might even do pretty well on their own if it wasn't for the fan base ruining these films.
Absolutely. So all right, number 10, The Lion King. And this is going to hurt some people, I know, because we're tampering the childhood, treasures here. But I'm not a big fan of it. I actually missed it when it came out in theater. I never saw it as a kid, but then I saw it as an adult, and I said, this is it? This is what everyone's talking about? And granted, it might be like Rocko's Modern Life or, some of those older cartoons on Nickelodeon we used to watch that really weren't that great. But,
my question really is, what is this actually teaching the children? It's pretty much teaching the children, your daddy dies, okay, boo-hoo, you run away, you get raised by some other people that just kind of take you in for no real reason, and then suddenly somebody else comes by and tells you, hey, you're a king, and then you have to go and rule the whole world after that. I'm sorry, this is a story that has been done over and over and over and over, and I'm tired of it.
If you actually do some research on the film, it's based on a Japanese film. So it's not, the storyline is not original at all whatsoever. The artwork, I'm sure, was good for its time, and they've just re-released it in 3D so they can get more money out of the a series that came out 10 years ago. But whatever. So let's go to number 9.
Let's move on to number 9. We're going to talk about The Hangover.
Now, see, I like The Hangover, the first one, so it pains me that this made the list a little bit, but everybody loved this movie so much, and to be honest with you, it was good, but it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't a gut-buster per se. There were a lot more funnier movies that year.
And again, the fan base destroys this film, is what really did it. Because you have someone like Zach Galifianakis. Now, if you've seen his stand-up, the man is a comedic genius. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to handle an audience. But then he's given this crappy script where he just has to kind of fill in all these voids within the script to make things funny where they weren't supposed to be. And then you have all the crappy fans coming in behind him, and they're only picking up on the one or two lines that he even hated.
Actually, Zach Galifianakis hates all the frat boy fans that he picked up. If you read some articles about it, he actually hates all this popularity and the people who he's getting laughs from. He just abhors them all, and he really is a self-conflicted man. And really some very intriguing articles, very intelligent, but also very conflicted and has a lot of inner struggling. Believe it or not. So, and the other thing is, too, The Hangover, it went through a lot of rewrites. So, on its own, if it was left in its infancy, then it would have been a terrible movie. But then it came in, some other people came in, they added some things, they added stuff that they've seen in Simpsons episodes when Flanders and Homer goes to Vegas, and surprise, you've got a hit film. Now, maybe this film also wouldn't have made it if it weren't for the sequel that came out. Because that sequel was awful, and now there are talks, there's already news.
Let's talk about the trilogy.
Yeah, it's now going to be a trilogy.
Actors demanding $15 million a piece for this third film? I'm sorry. The first film wasn't even worth $15 million on its own. Now you're talking about a third one, each actor wants it by themselves? But sorry, time to go home.
But it raked in a ton of money. The Hangover 2 raked in, I think it was like $450 million worldwide.
I believe the number I saw was $467 million.
That's crazy. And it was a terrible movie. The second one was mean, it was just not funny, and it just ruined all sorts of potential that the first one had straight into the ground. And because of that, we've got a sour taste in our mouths, so I'm sorry, but you ended up on this list.
All right, tell me what you picked for number 8.
All right, we picked Iron Man. Now, Iron Man is good. I like Iron Man. And I like, Robert Downey Jr. But it's just too much. You guys need to stop talking about Iron Man. Iron Man 2 sucked, quite frankly. It was an
Iron
awful
Man
movie.
2 was nothing but special effect after special effect, mixed in with some terrible acting and quite possibly Robert Downey Jr.'s worst role he's ever done.
Yeah, it really wasn't that good. Didn't bring anything to the table. I mean, they completely wasted the talent that they had, too. I mean, they had some great actors in that film. And, I mean, I love Sam Rockwell, too. And he probably was the best thing about that film. And it just did not turn out well at all. But, anyways, so, number 7 now. We're going to give you a little pre-warning, per se, because we've got some explaining to do. But number 7 is...
First, get out your defibrillators, people. We're talking about The Passion of the Christ.
Now, granted, that might not offend some more of our this is going to be one of those selections that people are either going to agree with or completely disagree with. It's really going to separate our audience here. Really overrated. I mean, I actually didn't think it was a bad film. For what it was, I could respect it. But good Lord, was it overrated as a film? I mean, in its entirety, I can respect it, and I can see where people are coming from and why people, treasured it so much. I understand it has a lot of meaning for people. But as a film, it was overrated.
Hey, well, here's my problem with it. First of all, churches were bringing people into this film. So you want people to come in and spend all this money and give a bunch of money to a known anti-Semite who only wants to tell people about the bloodiest part of Jesus' life. All the great things that Jesus did during his life that they could have done during this film. They could have even
portrayed.
They could have even brought him back at the end of the film, but they decided not to do that. Instead, all that they did was put him on the cross and put a spike right through his hands.
Actually, here they're bringing him back in the sequel. It's called The Passion of the Christ 2: Full Throttle.
Ah, right, okay, yeah. Is that like Gandhi 2, where he has to put down the non-believers?
Was that a UHF reference?
I think so.
I think it was. All right. Anyways, we're going to move on before God strikes us down with lightning. Number 6, and this is going to offend the other half who we just didn't offend, so Christians, you can rest easy now. Number 6, any film by Kevin Smith. Now, let us explain. We do love Kevin Smith. Dogma is actually one of my favorite films. Definitely my most favorite that he's ever directed and written.
I was a big fan of Clerks myself. I
Clerks
thought
was
it
good.
Pretty comedic genius.
Clerks good, but then once again, his fan base is just completely ruining him. And as of late, he's just really bad. I mean, you have these films, he's coming Cop Out and Red State. They're just really bad films, and they're ruining his name. But he's got this huge following of people who still support him in the wake of mediocrity. It's like Lady Gaga fans. It's just, once again, just, guys, give it up. Understand that your savior of film has died and will not come back.
And actually, I'm kind of annoyed at the fact that I have to choose between Kevin Smith and Tim Burton. I understand they had a fallout. Okay, the two of them don't get along. They don't like each other way back from Tim Burton's first Batman film. But what does that have to do with me? And why can't I like both of their films?
It's kind of like the family dilemma of your dad and your uncle, and the two just don't get along, but it's your favorite uncle and it's your dad's. So you're just torn between the two, and you don't know who to side with.
All right, so now we're going to jump into number 5, the Back to the Future trilogy.
I know one person who's listening right now that's just going to cry himself to sleep right now. Because we just bashed Back to the Future, Kevin Smith, and Passion of the Christ. So, I'm sorry. You know who you are.
But even still, back to the Future here. We're talking about how much the fans destroy this film. And how, to be honest, it's an overrated film in and of itself. It's really not that great. Michael J. Fox, look, dude, until you started shaking, you just weren't fun to watch.
Oh, no. We might need to edit that one out later.
No, let's let that one ride. Now, back to the Future here, we're going to talk about exactly why this film is so overrated, or the whole trilogy itself is overrated. First of all, there's nothing here based on science or any kind of fact whatsoever, so I can't call it a science fiction, because there's no science to go along with this fiction. Then we're also talking about Doc. He's the only savior of this entire film series. He's the only reason that I would possibly watch this movie, or any of the 3 movies, because he's just hilarious. But the whole Biff character, the fact that I have to watch the same character over and over and over in so many different iterations, it's just not realistic.
See, I like Crispin Glover, though. I do love Crispin Glover and all the things he's been in. And it's one of those actors that, not an A-list actor by any means, but when you see like an iffy, okay film, you can say, well, at least Crispin Glover was in it.
All right. Let's move on to number 4.
Crash. Now, this isn't the David Cronenberg film. This is the Crash, the award nomination, the award winner, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, you mean that one that everybody's been talking about for the past 37 years?
This one, I don't know. I am off and on with this one. I kind of enjoy Crash, but then, given time, I just start to hate it more and more. It just seemed very cliche and very, I don't know, just too easy of a film to write.
Pretty much all they did was they took every racial stereotype, threw it into one film, and then tried to turn it around on you, but still following those same racial stereotypes.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that in a way. And it's kind of like those Valentine's Day films, but except with relationships of boyfriends, girlfriends, it's, a black person and a white person, or, two opposing quote-unquote sides.
Yeah, pretty much. To show how people can get along when, in fact, they're not getting along in the film. They just learn to coincide and not to actually work together.
Yeah, so, like I said, it is what it is. Yeah, probably overrated, especially for being an Academy Award winner. All right, so number 3, and
Avatar.
Yeah.
Avatar. Look, guys, James Cameron, you're annoying. You've had some great films in the past. You truly have. But
you should be proud of yourself.
Your glory days are over. Hang up your hat. Go home.
Now, James Cameron, please feel free to contact us.
717 sexy bitch.
Please, debate with us, please.
But look, this is another one that it was the fan base that destroyed it. I'm tired of 3D films. I'm tired of people telling me that I need to go see 3D. I am colorblind. I hate you guys so much, okay? Make something that I can watch and stop putting it in 3D. On top of that, I didn't like Ferngully. I hated Ferngully. It was a stupid, stupid movie about saving the rainforest. And what does James Cameron do? He dresses it up with a bunch of blue characters instead of fairies, which, by the way, they're kind of fairy-like. And then he puts it into the Tree of Life, or whatever that thing is supposed to be called, and gives it the shot-for-shot, scene-for-scene Ferngully on a different planet.
And I don't know, I wasn't really into the whole hair wisp / tentacles touching. It was just kind of weird and
kind of creepy.
Made me feel icky inside. It just wasn't me. I personally thought it looked nice when it came out, and I did enjoy the 3D aspect of it because it was the first film of its kind to see in theater. But that was the only redeeming quality of it. When I saw it at home, I'm like, no, this is awful. It was an awful, awful movie. I was just so phased by the 3D and how actually gorgeous it looked, because it did look great in 3D.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Yeah, because Dale can't see anything. We got Helen Keller next to me. But overall, it was a pretty bad movie, and especially a disappointing one, especially if you're going to be working on it for 20 years, quote unquote, and then releasing it. Yeah. Whatever. All right, so number 2.
Number 2. This is a big one, guys.
Now, this is not just a film. This is actually a person and everything that this guy is associated with.
Now, I want you to explain to me how a person can make it onto a list of the 10 most overrated films.
And it's because he's that bad. Number 2 is Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn.
We hate Vince Vaughn so much. More so than Adam Sandler and Vin Diesel.
Combined, yes.
Combined.
If those two had a child together.
Oh, God.
And then that child was mildly retarded.
Oh, no.
I think we would have Vince Vaughn.
Oh, God. Yeah, so Vince Vaughn, we absolutely hate you. And we hate all you frat boys out there that love films like Old School or Wedding Crashers. Guess what, guys? It wasn't that funny. Old School, not that funny. Wedding Crashers.
Wedding Crashers had one mildly humorous scene.
And it was thanks to Will Ferrell.
Yes.
Will Ferrell was the funniest part of that movie. Which, I mean, it's Will Ferrell. He's hit or miss for me.
And even that scene was only okay at best.
Okay, but God, Old School, it kills me. I hate it when people tell me how awesome Old School is. It's honestly, guys, stop. I don't know how to put it in a nice way. I'm trying to come up with ways to...
What was that other one? Couples Retreat?
Couples Retreat
really?
was bad.
The problem with Vince Vaughn is that he's the same character in every single film, whether or not that film even calls for that character. Okay.
Except for The Cell. He was in The Cell, and that was just a little weird. I mean, I enjoyed The Cell, but him in The Cell was a little...
and you know what? I'm going to give him one film.
Yeah.
And that's got to be...
Dodgeball? Because I gave him Dodgeball. Dodgeball, for me, I kind of enjoyed Dodgeball thanks to Ben Stiller. Not so much Vince Vaughn.
See, when I was thinking, I was going along the same lines of Ben Stiller, and I was going with Zoolander.
That's true. But he had such a small role in that, it hardly even counts.
Which is probably the only reason I could stand him in it.
Yeah. But here's the thing about Vince Vaughn, is that even his good movies are bad. I mean, Swingers. I hated Swingers. Swingers, to me, I don't think that film aged well either. I mean, I definitely do think it was a period piece by all means, but Swingers just not as good as ever it's cracked up to be. Very overrated. But anyways, the only film more overrated than any film that Vince Vaughn has ever starred in is our number one choice.
And I got to prep you for this one, okay? Because before I even announce the name of it, I want you to know that the character that this film is based on, okay, I am the biggest fan you'll ever meet in your life. You give me a call, 717-SEXY-BITCH. I will answer any question that you might have about this character. I have read the comics. I've watched every film. I've seen all of the cartoons. In fact, I have them all at my house. I even have the encyclopedia of this character.
He has the kid pajamas.
Yes. Actually, I think I have 3 different pajamas of this guy. And we're talking about The Dark Knight.
Yep. It pains us. It really does. And we're probably going to get more spiteful emails over The Dark Knight than The Passion of the Christ being on this list.
Let me tell you why this one was bad. First of all, we're going to look at the Joker. And this is one of the things that absolutely destroyed this film, was the Joker's character. Nobody has been a better Joker since Jack Nicholson. Nobody before him and nobody since him. Okay, he was absolutely phenomenal. He pegged the character to the T. He followed it the way the comic books had him act. In The Dark Knight, the Joker just wasn't that good. He tried to act like he was this character that had no rhyme or reason to what he did. In fact, he made reference to, he's like a dog chasing a car. You know, I'll chase it, but once I get it, I have no idea what to do with it. Whatever it is he says. Okay, so you have no plan. Yet, you somehow planned out this intricate plan of you plant a cell phone bomb in a guy who is going to get jailed, but not in your cell. He has to get into the cell next to you. And then you have to get yourself imprisoned and then order your phone call, but you're going to hold that guard captive with a broken piece of glass because you knew that you'd have broken glass in this room. And then you'd finally go up and they'd give you your one phone call and you'd call and you'd kill the dude downstairs and then you could escape.
It was like a Saw movie where everything had to work out perfectly for the ending to come about the way it did. And to all fall into that player's lap.
If one small thing hadn't have went to plan, it wouldn't have worked the way it did.
And then Joker would have just been sitting in jail. And some guy would have had a cell phone inside of him and had the worst crap in about 3 days.
But, look, The Dark Knight, it sucked, okay? I'm sick and tired of all these people that are going around trying to play this why so serious game.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst. If
you're not funny. You're not cool.
If you ever wore a t-shirt that said why so serious or muttered that phrase, please just turn off our podcast right now. Yeah. We don't want to hear it.
I don't want to talk to you.
Don't want to. Actually,
go home.
Come to my address. Even better yet. Come to my address and we will...
I will beat the crap out of you with a cricket bat.
See, what I was going to say
In fact, I will go buy a cricket bat to beat the crap out of you with.
It's awful. Stop. It's not good. I mean, it was... yes, Heath Ledger's performance was decent. It was new. It didn't bring as much momentum as everyone thought it did. And also, you have the editing. The editing was actually really bad in The Dark Knight.
It was very poor. Look,
very bad editing. And you have Two-Face, who was actually one of my favorite characters, only had about, I think, 30-second screen time in that film?
It was absolutely horrid, the amount of time that he got.
He just dropped in, and then you'll never see him again. I'm not really looking forward to the new one that's coming out this year, the Dark Knight Rises. Just, I don't know. I have very...
The only way Christopher Nolan can redeem himself on this one is if he kills off Batman. I know he's not going to, but he should.
Yeah, no, I agree. And please, for the love of God, Batman, get rid of your night vision. It looks horrible on screen.
Yeah,
nobody likes
I'm
it.
sick and tired of watching when I'm looking at a point of view shot through a camera, through infrared goggles, through any of this technology. It's annoying. It has never worked well. In the history of movies, it has never worked well. Yeah. Stop.
Yeah. So, Dark Knight, there you are. Our number one pick for the top 10 most overrated films of all time. So once again, please send us your thoughts. We're on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/cinephile60time. Send us an email, cinephile60time@gmail.com. We would love to hear what you think.
Give us a phone call, 717-SEXY-BITCH.
And we hate you, Dark Knight, so much. Thank you for ruining two fans, actually, of Batman. Because I'm not as big a fan as you are, but
Everybody's a fan of Batman.
Yeah, I was
deep down.
Back in the day, I used to watch a lot and read a lot of the comics per se. So
doesn't get much better than the animated series. Even Batman Beyond, I'll take that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go that far.
All right,
anyways.
Let's jump into our next segment. This is going to be our oddball pick of the week. This is the first one that we're doing, and today we're both going to talk about a movie that we picked off of Netflix. These are streaming right now on Netflix, which means as soon as you're done this podcast, if you're not home, go home and check it out.
Absolutely. So, Dale, what's your pick this week?
Okay, my pick is actually going to be Harry Brown. This film came out back in 2009. I'm sure that many of you saw the previews for it, probably didn't check it out. It didn't do too well in theater, despite its fairly high rating that it got on Rotten Tomatoes. This is a film starring Michael Caine and Emily Mortimer. Both of them delivered a bang-up performance. A lot of fun to watch. Even David Bradley, very short-lived on screen, but he was a great supporting role for the time he was in the film. And he's the one that kind of got the whole thing rolling. You're going to need to check out the film to understand what I'm talking about with that. Definitely go watch it, stream it. Will, what was your thoughts on that film?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I think it's definitely worth checking out. And if you're a big fan of Michael Caine, which we are, he's been in some great roles. And he's just a huge filmography. You need to check him out. And he's really good. He really shines in this one.
All right, and what was your pick, Will?
My pick this week is going to be 13 Assassins. You'll hear the name Takashi Miike come up several times throughout our podcast. And if you are familiar with foreign films whatsoever, then you're familiar with him as well. A lot of people here in the States, though, probably don't know who he is. He is probably my favorite Japanese director. He is absolutely crazy, has really brutal films, really gory, but a lot of fun, too. They're gory and violent, but my God, are they just a good time to sit through and watch films like Ichi the Killer, To Audition, just some crazy stuff. Anyways, you need to check out 13 Assassins. In fact, it's probably a good introductory film for Takashi Miike and the stuff that he does. It follows a bunch of samurais. Not going to get too involved with the plot. To be honest with you, it might be best to check out the plot on Wikipedia while you're watching it so you can kind of follow along. It might be a little hard for some people to follow along just because of all the subtitles. There's a lot of subtitles to the film.
I know my first viewing, I definitely had to pause it about halfway through and really kind of try to catch up with myself.
Digest a bit. Yeah, absolutely. It's actually not that complicated, but it comes across as though it is. And I know that's really weird and probably doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But anyways, so you have this film. It's about samurais, the end of the samurai era, and you have this tyrant coming to power, and these samurais have to stop this tyrant. It's an awesome film. The battle scenes are just crazy. You actually have it's a 2-hour film. First hour is basically story. The second hour is just complete action. All these samurais, these 13 assassins, go after this whole army of people, and it's crazy. You have bulls on fire. You have swords going through shoulders. Absolutely nuts. It's a crazy fun time. You need to check it out. If you love samurai films, if you love Japan, if you just love having a good time at the movies, you owe it to yourself to watch this film. Came out, last year, 2011?
Well, its official release was actually September of 2010,
yeah.
But I believe it wasn't released in the States until sometime around April or May of 2011.
Yeah, it was a little late. Now, Takashi Miike, he's a powerhouse. He comes out, he churns films out like Hershey's does Hershey Kisses. They just pour out. Every year he comes out with several films, actually.
And every time they're solid gold.
Absolutely.
Definitely check out his work. And my other suggestion for this 13 Assassins film is if you are a really big fan of his work, if you really like the stuff that he's done, and you've seen it in the past, just go ahead out and buy this film.
Yeah.
But buy it in Blu-ray. Buy your high-definition version.
Oh, it looks nice.
It's worth every penny of it.
It's really nice. And if you have a 3D TV like I do, you can watch it in 3D. Dale can't, but I can.
Yeah. No.
Anyways, so we're coming to the close now of Cinephile Sexy Time. We first and foremost want to thank you for tuning in and remind you that you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Whatever it is, come find us. We want to hear from you. Cinephile60time at gmail.com, facebook.com/cinephile60time, and then also our phone number,
717-SEXY-BITCH.
and our Twitter, which is at CPSexyTime.
Cheese pizza, sexy time.
Sexy time, you got it. Now, once again, we want to hear from you. If you have any thoughts on this whatsoever, please send us an email. We will feature it next week. We'll talk about it next week. And lastly, we want you on as a guest. Please reserve your spot right now. We tape this on Sunday, kind of like morning/afternoons, and we would love to have you sit in, add a few comments yourself, and we would love just have you on our show.
So come on out, check it out. Definitely keep following us. We would love to have you as a regular listener. We'd love to have you on the show, as Will's already stated, and we'd like to hear as much as possible from you. If you disagree with anything we've said, any of our reviews, or even our top 10 most overrated films, give us a call, drop us a line on Facebook.
Come up with your own list. We want to hear your list.
Send us your list. And even if we don't like your whole list, we'll pick it apart. We might mention one or two of them. Maybe we can make a really nice compilation list of all of our different readers or listeners. And we can see what you guys didn't like out there.
Sure. And the biggest way to help us out is to share this podcast. Please, just share us with everyone you know. We would be eternally grateful, and we would really be super appreciative.
Like us on Facebook. Please go on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Cinephile Sexy Time. Click that like button. That's going to do us worlds of help.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And so, to end the show, we just want to say thanks again for listening to us, and we will see you next Sunday night.
And just my final word, Vince Vaughn and Adam Sandler, quit your jobs.
Oh, and Dark Knight as well.
Yeah. Go ahead and delete that film.
All right. Bye, everyone.